Yeah, I think, well, personally, I love my young couples. I love my newly married people starting families because they're coming in this like new era of their life, right? So I met with a couple that both had State Farm policies. Um, he was in our office and she ended up being in a different State Farm office. So they came in and sat down with me and they're buying a a townhome as well. So I sat down with them and I pulled their insurance policies, and they were currently married and they weren't listed on each other's policies. So, number one thing is we want to make sure you're listed on each other's policies because once you're married, you're driving each other's cars, you're in the same household. It's just going to keep everything clean. If there was ever an accident and any questions, you know that you're both covered on each other's vehicles. So I explained that to them. Um, they were super, super uninsured, meaning they had just the step above the state minimums. They had no idea that that was the case. They thought that they had good coverage. So being able to kind of sit down with them and show them, like, look, it's not going to cost you that much more if we were to bump up this liability so you protect yourself. You guys are going to, own a home in a few days. It's super important. They were on board. They were grateful. They said no one's explained that to us. So I was like, great. Like, I'm glad that I can be of assistance. Um, and then I was writing their home insurance, and we were actually talking about the personal property. And what's crazy is they were asking me, like, so on my engagement ring, he spent a lot of money on her engagement ring. Is that covered in my personal property? And a lot of home insurance policies will have a small amount for the jewelry allotment, but not a lot. So what we did was we wrote a personal articles policy specifically for her ring. She did end up losing her ring a few weeks later after
Wow.
we sat down and we had open discussions about it. If she didn't get that personal articles policy on that ring would have been gone and they would have lost out on this $8,000 that it was worth.
Hello and welcome to the Smart Business Owner Podcast with your host Shubert. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Smart Business Owner Podcast. This is Shubert. And this week we have a special guest. We have Brittany from State Farm. Brittany lives here in South Florida. So in South Florida, we have so many natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes. And Brittany happened to be an agent with State Farm, and they do property and casualty. So we are very happy to have her on the program. Brittany, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here as well.
Of course, of course. So, Brittany, before we dive in, I'm sure a lot of folks wanna know about the insurance industry, all the big stuff. But before we dive in, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself as far as how did you find your way into the insurance industry?
Of course. Well, I am born and raised in Florida, Palm Beach County to be exact. So, very familiar with this area. I did move away for college, studied at the University of Alabama, roll
Okay.
tide. And I graduated college and I ended up actually doing life insurance at first. So, I didn't start in property and casualty, I started in life insurance, which I did enjoy. But I was looking for something more, and that is what led me to doing property and casualty. It's just more head-ons with clients and getting to know people in the community and families, and just kind of helping this community that I love and that I grew up in. So that's what led me to this specific job.
Now, when it comes to life insurance, it could be something very personal for folks because sometimes you're dealing with death. Sometimes people, when they hear life insurance, they're thinking about mortality, and some folks don't like to talk about mortality. Now, I'm guessing property and casualty, it's a more interesting conversation because we're not talking about mortality, we're not talking about death, we're talking about protecting the things that they already have and they want to keep. So I'm guessing that's a more fascinating conversation. Is that an accurate
Yes.
depiction?
Yeah, that's definitely how I feel. I mean, I'll always love life insurance. I still believe that every single person needs life insurance, no matter who you are, no matter what your financial background is. So important. But when it comes to property and casualty, that is something that people do need now, right? Like people are looking every day in the state, across the country for this type of insurance now. And it's always changing too. So just keeps me a little busier. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I recommend life insurance. Everybody needs that as well.
Yes, 100%. I mean, this is something that in my practice as an advisor, we deal with that as well. So I agree with you 100%. Now, living in Florida, as we were saying before we started the conversation here, this is a very special state. Each year we have multiple hurricanes lurking in the Atlantic. Last year we had a hurricane that formed into Gulf of America. Make sure I got that one right. They don't call it Gulf of Mexico anymore, so it's Gulf of America. So
Yes.
that hurricane was a very unusual hurricane. That hurricanes came in with a lot of tornadoes. And right here where I'm at in South Florida, we have about 50 tornadoes. It was crazy. There's a lot of homes got destroyed. And I'm sure it's pretty much the same thing as in the part of Florida where you live in Tequesta. So, how do you address the needs of Floridians when it comes to property and casualty insurance?
Well, the one thing with Florida is we're a unique state. With Florida, we do have the highest risk out of all the states. We have our tornadoes. You look at states like in the Midwest where they're in tornado alley. Those tornadoes will come through. They will devastate small towns, cause damage to, families. But when you're looking at Florida and a hurricane, that will devastate the entire state. And it's not a small state, right? So you
It's a
look
big
at the
state.
hurricanes that we had last year coming off the Gulf of Mexico, devastating Tampa, the West Coast, even us on the East Coast. We didn't get affected by the tornado per se, or the hurricane, I should say, but we were affected by the tornadoes, which were caused from the outer bands.
Right.
So, I mean, you look at us as a state, our entire state had damage, no matter where you looked at it from one hurricane. So, Florida is a unique, special factor when it comes to Mother Nature. We definitely have a lot of risk and big risk.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Now, how do you address those needs for Floridians? I mean, when somebody call your office, what's your guys' approach when it comes to addressing those needs?
So our approach is really just educating them on the coverages that they have because you look at a standard homeowners insurance policy in Florida, it's going to have two different deductibles. There's going to be an all other perils deductible, and that's going to be your deductible if, a pipe bursts, if there was theft, anything other than a hurricane. On the other hand, you have a hurricane deductible. That is specifically for any windstorm damage. So educating them on that and letting them know that that hurricane portion, it's costing half of your premium pretty much, but it's also super important because without that coverage, there's no coverage for any windstorm damage. And that even includes when, our side of the state gets tornadoes caused by the hurricane, that comes out of that specific deductible. So
Right.
just making sure that our policyholders and our new customers understand the difference between that is important. Another thing that I like to always touch base on is flood insurance. Um, Flood insurance is not included in your policy for homeowners insurance. Flood insurance is 9 times out of 10 a separate policy directly through the National Flood Program through FEMA. Um, very few carriers in Florida will actually allow you to carry flood insurance. So a lot of Floridians, they're not aware that if there's any rising water in your home from flooding, that's not covered under your homeowner's policy with the hurricane coverage. So Florida, we are very unique. And I just like to make sure that our customers know that. I mean, even when it comes to our auto insurance policy holders, lots of claims from the tornadoes. The tornadoes will wreck through a car or your vehicle if it's parked outside. I had a customer whose roof had a tornado hit the roof, the tiles of the roof hit the vehicle. So this customer was calling us to put in not only a claim for his roof that was completely blown away from the tornado,
Right.
but his vehicle that was a total loss due to the tiles hitting it. So it's, you can't predict Mother Nature, and these are the things that you have to be prepared for.
So yeah, I mean, Florida. I mean, there's so many different things that can happen in the state. It's not even funny. Now you talk about the deductibles. Are the deductibles different from state to state, or is it the same?
From Yeah, so a lot of states they only carry one deductible, which is going to be their policy deductible. Florida, we have that separate hurricane deductible. So most of the time it's much higher than your
So it's a
all
special
other
deductible.
perils.
So it's a special deductible.
Correct. It's a special deductible. It's usually a little bit higher than your normal deductible. It
Got
goes
it.
off a percentage of your dwelling.
Got it. Now, your agency pride themselves, emphasizes customer service. How do you guys tailor property and casualty insurance to meet those needs that we just talked about?
Yeah, so we take pride in our customers and making sure that they know what they're getting and that they know their coverages, because a lot of people will go to, through an insurance company that they've never actually talked to on the phone or might have talked to once on the phone. And when you try to call them back, it's an 800 number, and it's people that don't actually know you and your family and your vehicles and your home. So with us, we do take pride in the fact that when you call us, we're here. We know you by name, you know us by name, and we're going to review your policy. You call in to make a payment. I'm going to take a look and say, Mrs. Smith, I see that you don't carry your comprehensive on this car. Did you know that you do not carry, comprehensive on this vehicle that would protect you from theft or vandalism, or any weather related issues on this vehicle? It's little things like that when people call in for small things that make them feel like they're taken care of. And especially with our new customers. I mean, when they come in, I want to see all their documents. I want to know everything about their life. Do they have kids? Are they single? What's their liabilities look like? If
Right.
you got into an accident and you majorly damaged someone's vehicle, are you okay? Are you going to be covered for that? How are you going to pay it if you're not? So just little things like that, I think, make a huge difference when it comes to an insurance agency. Customer service is everything.
Yes, because a lot of time those clients or customers, they may have blind spots that they don't even realize that they have. So I think being so thorough and comprehensive when you're doing, your fact finder or your discovery meetings, whatever you call it, I think it's very important to help them, understand what's at stake, as far as getting the proper coverage in place.
Exactly. It's super important. And even if, they don't want that coverage, that's okay. At least I asked and I explained it to them so that one day, if that, God forbid, does happen to them, they lose their car in a weather related event, they know that, we tried to tell them. Just, it's how I like to do business.
So many homeowners are curious about standard insurance policies. What are some of the misconceptions people have when it comes to what's covered and what's not? And if you can just go through, let's go through the home first, the property first, and then you can do
Yeah.
the auto.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many misconceptions when it comes to homeowners insurance in Florida specifically. The major one that I did start to touch on would be the flood insurance aspect. Um, Floridians, they just don't know that rising water from floods is not covered in their policy. And that's something that, unfortunately, when a catastrophic storm hits and their house is flooded, that's when they're calling in to see if they have that coverage. And unfortunately, at that point, it's too late. Um, so many people I've heard, we thought it was included in this and it's not. And I always like to make sure that they were aware. And I'll quote it anyways, just so you have the information if you want to protect yourself from that flooding. Um, Other misconceptions about insurance. I mean, I feel like every day I'll hear stories from people who are watching the news and they hear, some sort of story about citizens doing this or having decreases, which is great. We would love to see some decreasing in our home insurance in Florida right now. Unfortunately, I haven't seen too much of that around the board for all companies. It's just, I feel like there's a lot of false hope right now with the media. And I just want everyone to just double check with their insurance agents and make sure that they know if they are, getting a decrease or not. It's just super important to actually come to us because we would hear it first from these homeowners insurance companies. You know, so that's another really big one I like to touch on.
Now, a typical homeowner's insurance, what does it cover?
So your homeowner insurance is going to cover a few main things, and a lot of this is going to be built into your policy. So the main portion of your policy is going to be your dwelling. So your dwelling amount is going to be the actual amount that it would cost if your house was a total loss
Right.
to rebuild it from scratch. So a lot of people think, well, I purchased my home for 1.5 million. Why is my dwelling only 600,000? Well, that's the amount that it would cost to rebuild your home. The land is where you're paying a lot of money, and insurance doesn't, care about your land. They only care about the property. So your dwelling, that's a huge main portion of your policy. Second to that is going to be your personal property. So your personal property is going to be any of your belongings inside the home. Um, there's two ways to run this. You can either do it at actual cash value or you can do replacement cost. So um, the way I like to explain the differences is if you buy a couch from Restoration Hardware 10 years ago, 10 years goes by, your house gets destroyed in a hurricane, that couch is no longer with us, right?
Right.
Couch is destroyed. If you have your property, your personal property at replacement cost, you're going to get what that couch is brand new. If you have it at actual cash value, they're going to add in, okay, it was a Restoration Hardware couch that costed you $9,000 10 years ago.
Right.
What would it cost today at a resale value? So a lot of people, they do opt out to cover their belongings at replacement cost, and they will do actual cash value to save some money on their insurance. And I'm okay with that. I think it's not the worst idea to save some money. I myself don't have replacement costs on my belongings because my belongings are, not Restoration Hardware, first of all. And second of all, um, my main concern with a total loss would definitely be my actual home.
So yeah, that's very interesting. I don't think any homeowner ever thought about that. When you're insuring your home, it's the property and your personal belongings. The land's not included. That's why there's that discrepancy between the amount of insurance we'll pay you compared to what the house is really worth. Because at the end of the day, the land's still there. So
Exactly.
that makes total sense. Now, when it comes to auto policies, there are a lot of different options out there. So, what are the essential coverages that you think drivers should get, and once they're getting a policy, what they should look for to make sure that these things are included into the policy?
Yes. So in Florida, our state requires very minimal coverage, which I never recommend. It's your right as a Floridian, but it's very risky. Florida only requires what's called PIP and PD. So that's personal injury protection and property damage at 10,000. What that covers is the first 10,000 in medical. If you're hurt, if somebody's hurt, that's your personal injury protection. And then 10,000 for any property damage liability. So if you hit somebody else's car and you only have $10,000 of liability, say you total their vehicle, say they have a brand new Mercedes, $10,000 in liability is going to get you nowhere. That's going to maybe get you the tires for their brand new Mercedes. So I always say go up to 100,000 in property damage if you can. If you can make it work, it just make sure that you protect yourself from damaging somebody else's car at a total loss situation, no matter if it's an older vehicle or a brand new sports car. That coverage is where I like you to at least start at. Um, the other thing would be bodily injury liability. Florida does not require that at all. That's if you injure somebody else. You're at fault. You hit somebody, they're in the hospital. If you carry no bodily injury liability, who's paying for their medical bills? They're going to sue you. They're going to come after your job. They're going to come after your paychecks. So highly recommend carrying bodily injury liability. Um, I prefer it at least at that 100,000, 300,000 limits. But of course, each person, I would look at their, account and see exactly what it is that I think that would qualify for them. If they're not driving much, I'd say we could probably lower it. So those are the main things with Florida and liability. Now, of course, you have your comp and collision. That's going to cover your vehicle. So if you want to protect your car from collision, theft, vandalism, weather, you're going to want to carry those coverages. Some people with older vehicles, they opt out of that, which is fine. If you think that your car is not worth that much, it might be smart for you to not carry that coverage, especially if it's costing you, a certain amount of dollars per year. Um, Case by case situation there. If you have a newer car, you're going to want to carry it no matter what, in my opinion.
Right. So what about uninsured motorists? Because in Florida, we have a lot of folks that do not have any insurance whatsoever. So
Yeah.
how important is that coverage and how does that work?
If you are young and you're working, and I think you need uninsured motorist coverage. Um, that reason being, it covers three things in a certain situation. So if somebody hits you, they're at fault, you're injured. They don't carry bodily injury liability, or they have very minimal that's not going to cover your medical. Your uninsured motorist coverage then kicks in for any lost wages, medical bills, pain and suffering. So people who are young and relying on their jobs to make them money, if they're out of work and they don't have like some sort of disability income policy, that's going to definitely help them in that situation. Also for their medical bills, you do have the first 10,000 in that PIP coverage for yourself, but as we know, you go to the hospital, 10,000 is like throwing a penny in there. It's not going to get you very far. Um, so highly recommend that, especially if you're younger. We do have a lot of our retired customers that opt out of it because they have really good health care and they're not going to miss out on the lost wages. So that's kind of one of those things that I have a discussion with people as they get older, giving them the option to maybe get rid of that coverage because it is very pricey in Florida due to the uninsured motorists on our road.
Yeah, indeed. That's one of the big things in Florida because we have so many aggressive drivers down here, and you don't know who have insurance, who doesn't. So I think it's very important. Now, one thing you mentioned earlier, I want to go back to that a little bit, is replacement cost, and actual cash value. It's not something that I hear. I mean, actually, that's the first time I'm hearing that term. I know about cash value because I deal with things with life insurance, but I didn't know when it comes to private and casualty insurance, this is something that they consider as far as the residual or cash value or the replacement cost. So when you're doing something like this, I mean, is that something people walked in and asked you, "Hey, can you do my policy based on residual cash value, or can you do my policy based on replacement costs?"
So when it comes to the replacement cost, so on the actual structure of the home, we're always going to insure it at replacement cost, especially if you have a mortgage, they will not allow us to do otherwise. I don't even give that option because it gets too difficult. Um, Now, when it comes to your personal property, I do think that there's wiggle room there for, um, possibly saving some money by bringing it down because replacement cost, um, you know, if you have nice belongings, even your electronics, you know, um, your furniture, if you want to insure it at replacement cost, what would be a really smart thing for you to do is once a year, especially maybe right before hurricane season, go through your home, take photos of all of your belongings so that you actually have the proof of the furniture and TVs and electronics that you do have.
Right.
Now,
So you don't want to wait
if
after the
you
fact.
right. And you can even do that if you don't cover it at replacement cost because you're still going to get something for your personal belongings that are now ruined from a storm?
Yeah, it's I mean, a lot of time we talk about these things, we don't think these things gonna happen. I remember the last hurricane that came through. There are several homes that were devastated. They had to. There's a few communities in the Gardens area where they had to had police at the gate because the gate was broken. Those houses, the door got blown up, the roof got blown up, all the belongings were exposed. So they had to have a couple, given that those homes didn't have a roof, a lot of these things gonna get damaged. So that this is very important. The thing that you mentioned as far as making sure that you're taking pictures before the fact, because once the hurricane is here, it's too late to take pictures.
Exactly. And it just makes it a lot easier for the claims adjusters and for yourself because you want to make sure that you're protecting your belongings because that's the number one reason why you have insurance, right? So super smart. If I could give you any advice, it would be to take photos just before hurricane season for that just in case. You could even take a video throughout your house really quick. It just makes it easier for that, what if
And it's
you
very
do lose
easy
your
these days
belongings.
because with cell phones, people can just easily just take a little 360 of the house and save that video. Now,
Exactly.
talking about those natural disasters, we've been seeing them more increasingly lately. Hurricanes has been more severe, higher categories, and Florida. We've seen tornadoes all the time in the Midwest, but not in Florida. So, what can homeowners do to before these things happen to make sure that their policies have all the coverage that are necessary to make sure that if they get hit, that they will be protected. Like just say if they're not your client, if they're hearing, if they're listening to to a podcast, what can you tell those folks as far as what are some necessities they need to have in the policy to make sure they're covered?
What I recommend, first of all, is definitely at each renewal, your policy renews once a year. Every time it renews, make it a point to call your agent, set an appointment to come in and see your agent, and just make sure that everything is in place and up to proper standards. When it comes to like your dwelling amount, how that's calculated is through a tool called the replacement cost estimator. So I pretty much go into a system on the computer. I pull all the specs from your house, what it's built off of. Is it, masonry? Is it a frame house? To the inside, like what kind of floorings do you have? Do you have tile? Do you have hardwood? Um, I go through every single kitchen, bathroom. Has it been updated? Is it tile? And I plug that all into our system, and that spits out a replacement cost estimator amount to me. So, okay, it comes back. Your house would cost 450,000 to rebuild. Great, that's what we put as your dwelling. 10 years go down. It goes up a little bit every year automatically, to make sense with inflation and whatnot. But you come back and you see me and you say, "Oh, I've redone my entire house. Actually, I now have, imported stone floors and all of this custom designs in my kitchen and my bathroom." Okay, well, that's going to be a different story. We're going to want to redo that replacement cost estimator to the home that you have now compared to the one that you had before that
Right.
reflects those changes and those updates. So definitely, I mean, A lot of people forget to call their insurance agent when they redo their house. It's not on their mind. That's why I think like if you at least meet or even call once a year at your renewal and just kind of go through those coverages to make sure that your dwelling is actually giving you the coverage that your home deserves, super important.
Yeah, because folks probably not doing that. I mean, I don't know too many people that call their insurance at renewals after they remodel their kitchen or they remodel their bathroom. At the end of the day, those houses are underinsured because the kitchen, let's just say they spend 40, 50 grand on a kitchen, on a brand new kitchen, and then that's not included in the quote.
Right.
But I'm guessing the reason they probably don't call is because the premium gonna go up.
And it will go up because it's, covering more, it's protecting more. And a lot of people, they don't want their insurance to go up. So they don't want us to raise their dwelling, but then you're under insuring yourself. And in the event of a catastrophic event where your home is completely destroyed, you're going to want to make sure that all that money you put into redoing your house is given back to you. So that's why I think it's super important. I mean, we had a lot of home insurance companies will come out and send inspectors out every now and then. It's completely randomized. And, they'll call the customer before and let them know that they're coming out to do a routine inspection. I had an inspector go out to one of our clients who we talk to regularly, I would say. Like she has everything with us, her autos, her home, a rental property. So the inspector went over there and we found out through him that she added 2,000 square footage to her house. Like she added 2,000 square feet to her home,
Wow.
which caused her policy to almost double. Um, and she wasn't happy about that particularly, but at the end of the day, if something happened, don't you want that money back for what you put into this beautiful new home that you have, you know?
Right. It's kind of like she have two homes because usually there's some home that are 2,000 square feet. There are homes that are even smaller than that, 1,500 square feet. But she
Exactly.
added 2,000 square feet. She basically added a whole new home and was hoping to keep the
Yes,
premium the same. That's
exactly. And that's why it doubled in price because her square footage over doubled.
you,
So,
you know one thing that I found out is that people don't like to pay for insurance. The people hate paying for insurance. However, let's just say you live in California. I know we don't live in California, but let's just say you were in California and the Palisade disaster, fire, everything's burned down. Can you imagine, if you didn't have that coverage, if you have like a simple coverage where your house is only covered for half, and you're expecting a check for the whole home, 100% of the replacement cost. But the insurance company comes in here. By the way, you added this, you added that. You never called us, so we're not gonna pay for that. So I mean, I know we don't like. I mean, a lot of folks, insurance company are some of the most hated companies in our countries. The drug companies are one of them too. But insurance companies, it doesn't matter if it's life insurance, private and casualty. People hate insurance because sometimes they don't pay, but sometimes they have a good point. And especially in this case, if you added all that extra, flooring, living space in the home, pay the extra premium. Just be upfront about it. Let the insurance company know that that's what I have, and I want to make sure that if the worst happen, that I'm 100% covered.
exactly.
So speaking of premiums, a lot of time people are complaining, "Oh my goodness, my premium is so expensive, so expensive." Let's just say somebody have a homeowner's insurance and the premium is through the roof. What are some of the steps they can take to lower that premium without compromising the coverage that they have in place? Meaning that they don't get without things that are super important. They can lower the coverage without compromising that.
Without compromising your coverage, it's hard to say because Florida is a huge risk factor. If you raise your deductibles. That'll take your policy down a little bit. But you would be out of pocket more when it comes to filing the claim. So it's not something that, I would say is going to bring your policy down without sacrificing coverage, because at the end of the day, you are kind of sacrificing coverage, even if you do raise your deductible a little bit. But my only advice would be to stay informed on the industry. Make sure you let us shop your policy. If you're not happy, call me. I can shop it for you. I can make sure that you're getting the best home insurance that we can offer. Um,
So
and
you guys are
that,
insurance brokers. It's not
minimizing any
just a State
coverage.
Farm, correct?
What was that?
So you guys are insurance brokers. You don't just represent State Farm.
When it comes to home insurance, that is correct. I do only quote out of State Farm for the auto insurance, but for the home insurance, I am able to shop it. We have about 7 carriers right now that I'm able to quote out of.
Okay,
So
great.
definitely with the home insurance, let us know how we can help. We can shop it. At least if you see that all the other options are the same price or even higher, at least you know that you are still getting the best option for this upcoming year. Um, it's one of those things that if you stay on top of it and you communicate with us and we'll communicate with you, that we'll do our best to make sure that you are getting the best coverages for the best price.
Now, when it comes to auto, let's switch to auto for a minute. There are so many factors that can influence the premium, how much that the insured will be paying. Can you talk about some of those factors that comes into play when you're considering an auto policy for a client, and how can they manage those factors into for their advantage?
Yeah, I mean, there's two major factors, I would say, three major factors in auto insurance. One would, of course, be the risk factor of Florida, but the other one would be your consumer history report, um, your accident history, your ticket history. Do you have, any major violations like a DUI that's going to affect your rates 100%? Do you have any minor violations like, running a stop sign, speeding, things like that? They will stay on your record for a few years. And then any major accidents. I mean, like if you get into an accident at fault, somebody gets injured, that's all on your consumer history. So when we pull up your auto insurance quote, we're able to see that, and we don't have an option. State Farm is going to spit out a number that reflects the risk of you and your driving history.
Right.
So be a good driver, stay vigilant. Don't, I know everyone's in a rush all the time, but just try to slow down and remember that, everyone on the road in Florida is a little underinsured, and that you need to just, slow it down and just, try to be a good driver. Um, on the other hand, I understand that we can't always blame people even if they were at fault, because there's so many, like once a day you get a call from someone was on 95 and someone was trying to swerve into their lane, so the only thing that they could do was swerve into another car. So I understand that when it comes to accidents, like people are, even if they're at fault, it's something that is going to happen, and that's why insurance is here. But just try to keep your record clean, if as clean as you can. That'll help you with your personal rates. Another thing with your auto insurance rates is going to be where you live, actually.
I was going to
So
ask
each
about
zip code
that.
in Florida has its own risk factor. Um, State Farm and other insurance companies, they know that certain zip codes have more accidents daily with more uninsured drivers than others. So somewhere quiet like Tequesta, lately it's been getting busier here. So we have been seeing a little bit of more risk over here. But if you look at Tequesta a few years ago when people still didn't know what Tequesta was, great rates, no accidents, pretty calm and easy. And as you go to the bigger cities, you go to Miami, you go to Fort Lauderdale, if you've ever driven down there, you see the difference of how busy the roads are, and, how fast people are driving and switching lanes. You can really feel the difference. So, the risk factor and where you live does play a huge part in your rates. When I moved from West Palm Beach, I was living in more of the city area to Palm Beach Gardens, my rates went down because I moved from a more city, more, lively area to a more slow suburban area. That helped my rates. So I was happy about that. Um, but that's one of the major things that affect your car insurance.
So, with COVID, when COVID hits 2019, 2020, we have one of the biggest migration in the state of Florida. Florida and Texas, in the nations, are the number one states. Texas number one, Florida number two. When it comes to migration, and a lot of these people are moving from New York, New Jersey, the entire Northeast, and California. So,
Yes.
do you think that play a factor in auto insurance as far as insurance company are raising the rates on Floridians? Because obviously, everybody that moves to Florida needs a new car. They're gonna drive, so that's more congestion, and that's more possibilities to have more claims.
100%. Like you can 100% blame some of the increases in your insurance on everyone moving
So
here.
we can blame it on the New
And
Yorkers.
yeah, we can blame them all day because it has gone up. The more people here, the more accidents. It's just facts, it's just math, right? If there are hundreds of thousands of people moving here throughout the year, that's going to be thousands of more accidents just statistically. It's just how it is. So yeah, um, definitely a huge factor is everyone moving here and it becoming so busy.
Yeah, I mean, even the homes, the price of home has skyrocketed. There's a lot of folks that's,
Right.
looking to buy a home or waiting to buy a home. Instead of the prices going down, they went up, even with high
Yeah.
interest rates. But the further south that I realize that you go, for example, when you go down in Miami, there's so many crashes. It's crazy. It's just like every 5, 10 miles there's a crash. So that makes total sense. When you have more people driving, and it's more likely to have accidents. Now, let's just say something like that happened, accident happened, or your home got damaged. What is the process of filing a claims and making sure that it's a smooth process and a smooth experience?
Definitely. So with our claims, we have kind of two separate options here at State Farm. Well, here at our office, I should say. When you file a claim through State Farm, right? If you have a State Farm policy for your home or your condo or for your auto insurance, it's all done in-house. I'm able to at least see most of the notes on the claim, see where, the car is scheduled to be serviced, where your rental car is going to be picked up. So even though I'm not the claims department, I can still assist our customers, which is super great because it just a lot of the times our customers, we're the ones that they call when they get into an accident, and we're more than happy to help and smoothly, get them on the phone on a conference with the claims department and make sure that they understand what the next steps are while still us being involved. When it comes to our home insurance, we service probably 20 different home insurance carriers right now, so it can get it can become a lot. So we always recommend our customers to call us first, let us conference them in with the claims department with whatever home insurance provider they have, and then just we try to put as many notes on their account as we can. um, of course, during the last hurricane, I feel like we had a lot of different claims. And sometimes when there's a major catastrophe, patience is key. I know it's super frustrating. You want to get your car fixed immediately, you want to get your home fixed immediately. And, when there's a major catastrophe, they're bringing in people from different states, working the claims and helping with the phone. So patience is definitely key, but as much as I can help, I would love to help with, any claims related issues.
So basically, it's very important. So let me ask you this: what role does property appraisers plays? Oh, not property appraisers. I take that back. Public adjusters plays into those claims. Do you recommend someone to call a public adjuster before they file a claim, or do you recommend they call you? Now, I know you might be a little bit biased on that, but I still want to know your answer to that.
Yeah, so with adjusters, like what State Farm or what the other companies that we service will do is they will actually send out their own adjuster. If the client doesn't like what that adjuster has decided on, like whether it being the value of whatever was damaged and what your payout would be, you have the right to hire a public, adjuster yourself, that can work out and negotiate kind of with the other adjuster and then the claims department and see if they can come to some sort of agreement. But most of the time, from what I've seen, adjusters are fair. The ones that we use, like many times they're okay with the adjuster that State Farm assigns and it goes smoothly, which is great. That's definitely very helpful for us because it keeps our clients happy.
Very well said. Well said. Now, reflecting on your career, dealing with clients on a daily basis, what are some of the success stories that you have seen? Somebody you have helped either with auto or
Yeah, I think, well, personally, I love my young couples. I love my newly married people starting families because they're coming in this like new era of their life, right? So I met with a couple that both had State Farm policies. He was in our office and she ended up being in a different State Farm office. So they came in and sat down with me and they were buying a townhome as well. So I sat down with them and I pulled their insurance policies, and they were currently married and they weren't listed on each other's policies. So, number one thing is we want to make sure you're listed on each other's policies because once you're married, you're driving each other's cars, you're in the same household. It's just going to keep everything clean. If there was ever an accident and any questions, you know that you're both covered on each other's vehicles. So I explained that to them. Um, they were super, super uninsured, meaning they had just the step above the state minimums. They had no idea that that was the case. They thought that they had good coverage. So being able to kind of sit down with them and show them, like, look, it's not going to cost you that much more if we were to bump up this liability so you protect yourself. You guys are going to, own a home in a few days. It's super important. They were on board. They were grateful. They said no one's explained that to us. So I was like, great. Like, I'm glad that I can be of assistance. Um, and then I was writing their home insurance, and we were actually talking about the personal property. And what's crazy is they were asking me, like, so on my engagement ring, he spent a lot of money on her engagement ring. Is that covered in my personal property? And a lot of home insurance policies will have a small amount for the jewelry allotment, but not a lot. So what we did was we wrote a personal articles policy specifically for her ring. She did end up losing her ring a few weeks later after
wow.
we sat down and we had open discussions about it. If she didn't get that personal articles policy on that ring would have been gone and they would have lost out on this $8,000 that it was worth. So just the fact that we sat here and discussed their needs and their belongings saved her from when she lost that ring just weeks later after they just moved into a new house. So that story always sticks with me. That's one that I will always tell customers and clients when we're discussing personal property and your jewelry or like anything that's worth something that you really, really want to protect separate from your home insurance policy. Because your home insurance policy is going to have a higher deductible too.
Right.
Personal articles policy is going to have a smaller deductible. It's going to protect that one specific item. And it's so much easier to put a claim through that for one specific item.
Wow. Thank God they got that policy. Most
I
folks,
know. It gave me chills.
yes, most folks don't think about these things, even though they know it's important, but it's not something that comes to mind when, and especially when they're getting insurance. Uh, what would you say is motivates you on a daily basis to get out there, get back, in your office and helping all those people with their insurance needs? What motivates you, Brittany?
the Floridians, the actual people that I see that come into my office. Like, I have such a diverse group of clients, from ranging from people who just moved here from New York and have no idea where to go to eat tonight, from Jupiter locals who grew up here just like I did. And I love both sets of people in their own different ways. Like, I love the people in our community that have been here forever, and they're just the true Floridians that will know that when a hurricane comes, they know what to expect. But I also love educating the people who are moving here. And our book is 50-50, I would say. It's, half the locals, half the new residents. So um, just the Floridians, I love protecting them and just doing the best that I can to make sure that they have the coverage that they need. That's what motivates me. That's what I love about my job.
Now, looking back, you started with life insurance. Now you're private and casualty. Obviously, you still have your entire career ahead of you. But if you could go back and when you first started, would is there anything you would do differently?
I would have probably gotten into property and casualty earlier than I did. I would have loved to start off with that, plus the life insurance, which is great. I mean, I'm still licensed, I still sell it, just not day to day, I would say, anymore. I wish that I started earlier because it is my goal, my long-term goal, to own my own agency one day and, be a boss that can do all of the insurance needs for people. So,
That's great. That's great. Now, let's just say, for example, there's young folks out there want to be you. They want to be just like you and a successful insurance agent. What can you tell those young folks out there that what step they can take in order to become like you?
yeah, I mean, I highly, highly recommend it as a career for a few reasons. I mean, one, there's money to be made in insurance. There just is. It's a lucrative career that's never going to go away. You're never going to have any concerns with job security. Insurance will always be here. Now, it's stressful, yes, very stressful at times, especially during the disasters. And, people don't always want to talk to you. So you got to be a little bit tough there. You got to have a little bit of tough skin. But for the most part, it's such a lucrative career that you can make money. You can also help people and help the community, and there's only up from here. There's no limit to insurance. Like, you can work as hard as you want, and your paycheck will reflect that. Of course, there are people that you could be a little lazier, but if you want to make money and you want to help people at the same time, insurance is an awesome industry to get into.
Very well said. In your current world, what does success look like? What is your definition of success as an insurance agent, also in life in general?
Yeah. So when it comes to work, success for me is knowing that after I spoke to someone, they're educated and they know that they're covered. I want to know that, like, my customers, when they leave my desk or get off the phone with me, they know that they're covered and that they understand what they're covered for. Because I, like I've said, so many agents and people in insurance, they don't explain everything, and it's a second language to most of the population. So success to me is definitely knowing that my customers are educated. And then success in my life is just going to be knowing that I'm doing things right. I mean, like, I don't want to ever feel like I'm doing things wrong, and I've made mistakes like everyone has, but knowing that I do things by the book and that I'm doing the best that I can for me and for my, customers, that helps me sleep at night. Um, I'm sure a lot of people think that they have opinions about people in insurance, but I want people to know that, like, my motivations are always genuine.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, was there any mentor that helped shape your career, that helped you become who you are today?
Yeah, definitely my boss who owns this agency, Lindsay. I mean, she is such a boss. She started sorry about that. My boss, Lindsay, is definitely biggest mentor. I look up to her a lot. She is a mother of 3 kids and runs a business and knows everything about insurance. So she is someone that I definitely highly look up to.
Your boss, Lindsay.
Yeah.
So when it comes to PRE, that's where obviously I've met you. You've been in the group. You're one of the new members of PRE, Professional Referral Exchange. Can you tell us how your experience has been so far in that short period of time that you've been a PRE?
It's been awesome. I mean, I was 5 minutes late to this podcast because one of our members sent me a referral and I called them right away because that's what you want to make sure you do when people are referring you business. But it's been super awesome, not only for my business and for my clients, but it's also been great to know a group of people who I can also refer out to. If I have someone at my desk and they need something for their mortgage, I know who to call. If they need someone to help them with a real estate deal, I know who to call. And it's so much easier, and it makes us look more professional too, having this group of people behind us.
So how long you been in the group now?
I've been with Pre since November, so it's been
November.
about 4 months.
4 months. Would you say you already got your money back and then some since you joined the group?
Yes, in 4 months I've already gotten my money back, so
Wow.
highly worth it.
Wow. And you're still in the group, so it's a good ROI, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Nice. Awesome. Awesome. Now, for folks looking to, get a hold of you, I want to get a quote, how can they do that?
They can call my office. I am here between 9 and 5 throughout the week. And then I'm also available if you want to walk on in. I'm in Tequesta, Florida. So if I'm not too far from you, you can always come on into our office. We work right next door to a great bagel shop. So come grab some breakfast and then come talk to me about insurance.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Brittany, it was great to have you. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. I've learned a ton, and I'm sure the audience have learned a ton as well. So, folks, I hope you enjoy this episode just as much as I have. Until then, see you in the next episode. Thank you, Brittany.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to the Smart Business Owner Podcast. See you in the next episode.